Hi, welcome to lesson 2 on how to improve your handwriting. Just going to start to set out the page again. Just put a margin over here as per usual. So yeah, I'd always recommend taking any opportunities you can to practice your handwriting. You know, that's like writing a shopping list once a week. You know, when you've got some spare time, just spend 10, 15 minutes, half an hour just working on basics and letters, you know, just and get familiar with using a pen. You know, a lot of it's about, you know, it's like with learning anything, you need to repeat it, and it takes time. You know, it could take weeks, months, or even years to kind of really develop, or you know, see those kind of changes. Yeah, it's just a skill you can just, you know, break it down into easy steps to practice. So you know, so try to copy along. I'm just going to just make a little title. I'm going to do this double height. So what I do is I start off with a little guideline. You know, this is basically lettering. You know, this is the basics of lettering. So I'm just going to write a little title here. So we've got our section 1, section 2 here for our lowercase. So your numbers should be full height. You know, they should be as tall as your capitals. I'm just going to do some basic exercises, warm-ups basically. I mean, this is print writing. This is printing. Yeah, this is the most straightforward way to write. Warm-ups. So you know, a lot of people kind of struggle with, you know, how to hold the pen. You know, bad grips and like pressure. You know, downward pressure and things like that, and you end up sort of like this kind of thing, and sort of chiseling into the paper. You know, and then you get kind of pressure marks and marks in your fingers and things. So you know, what I would always recommend is just is practicing little warm-ups. You know, for a little while, just forget about letters and things, forget about and words. You know, because you can fall into kind of traps and bad habits. But you know, my warm-ups would just be really simple lines. You know, you just start with basic lines. You know, and what you'll see is that letters are basically made of little lines. That's all they're really made of, is lines and circles. C shapes, you know, little curves, you know. So you might find a way just to do these without having to you don't have to think about it too much. You don't have to overanalyze it. So I'm doing little groups of 5, 5, 5, 5. And you know, these are those classic tallies. You know, you don't have to think about those too much. You don't have to just train yourself, but it's just getting used to essentially making marks on the paper however you can. You know, no one can really tell you're doing it wrong. You know, you're just making marks on the paper. That's what you're doing. You know, so you know, just going through different iterations. I recommend doing three of each. I'll just do it on this line. Forward slashes or angle strokes like this. You know, that shouldn't be too taxing, if you know what I mean. But it can be, you know, if you're concentrating very hard and you're really like pushing down, you know, it gets painful. But you know, you can just practice little dashes like this. You can do as many as you want. You can fill up pages doing this kind of thing. And they get more. You can build up the complexity. But what you'll also see is that you can start to use these shapes to actually build letters. Obviously these are just circles, but they can also be the letter O, or they can be the letter Q with a little line. You can make a letter Q. And we'll do two small ones as well, do them at half size. So it's not writing the letter O, it's just drawing a circle. That gives you ideas, gives you access to other shapes. That's a triangle, but that could also be the letter A. If you see what I mean, you can just cross that and make it into an A. And there could also be almost an M. That helps you to create M's and W's. But you don't have to worry about it too much because you're just doing a triangle, and you can practice triangles as much as you want. And you should just do everything full size and half size. You can make up your own. But yeah, what you can see now is, obviously I said about the A. Oh yeah, I'll do some C shapes as well. These are quite important because you'll find that a lot of letters are built off these shapes. Now this is just basically a sideways figure of 8, but some people call that the infinity symbol. It's known as the infinity symbol, but that's also kind of gets that. It's almost like the F, like a sloped F, or there's maybe an S as well. It's not far off an S. You can develop that into an S. Just if you can do these shapes, you're building some skills. I think we're pretty much, you can do a lot more of these. You can do, and then you can get into your numbers and symbols. I might as well just do the numbers now, just to get into it. I'm just going to make a little guideline for the top of the numbers. Just go through the numbers nice and straightforward. 0, 0, 1 to 9. If you want your writing to look nice, you want to try to keep the shapes quite simple. You don't want to make too many crossovers. Not too bad, not too bad. But you just repeat it a few times. So, you know, it's also a matter of self-checking, looking for errors. You know, I see a little error here. Maybe this should be straighter. That's not quite long enough. You know, try to correct it on the next batch. So yeah, I'll just give you a little example of using these shapes to then do the alphabet, for example. So I just like to ruler it out, so it makes it nice and neat. I've gone off a bit there. Straighten off a bit. So for this, you know, for A, we do this, A, and then you take one of these, boom, well, you cross it over. B is one of these, and actually two of these, basically. Boom. So C is obviously already here. And D, one of these, one of those. You know, kind of obvious. Then you're using this C shape to build the G. Just carries on, really. I think with these shapes you can build everything. And a lot of them are this is the C, little small C shape with a line, circle. I mean, S is this helps to get your S going. Also, it's a figure of 8. It's half of a figure of 8. I mean, the U, again, it's partly this shape. It's partly it's just a C shape that's done. You know, you can practice C shapes like this. X is one of these and one of these, isn't it? Okay, thanks for watching lesson 2. I kind of have to finish it because it's limited to 15 minutes. But yeah, we just carry on with the lowercase. Trying to use these shapes, for example, the A's with one of these, B with one of these, C is obviously there, D, and then these are E. These can form E's as well. Alright, stay tuned for part 2.